iQOO is finally here on Indian soil with their first smartphone, which also happens to be one of the first 5G smartphones in India. This is Sandeep from RevAtlas, and here is our camera review of the iQOO 3 5G smartphone. What you get with the iQOO 3 is a quad camera setup. The main camera is a 48MP Sony IMX582 sensor with f1.79 aperture, while you get a secondary ultra-wide 13MP f2.2 camera, a 13MP telephoto camera with f2.5 aperture, and lastly 2MP f2.4 depth sensor. Photos captured are good overall in terms of the color output, but there is a tendency to produce warmer looking images than reality. Dynamic range is good with the HDR mode, and if you need anything better, using night mode in some situations does help to a certain extent by improving the dynamic range, especially in the shadows. The sharpness and detail are good and in fact seem better than the Realme X50 Pro 5G that we tried recently, despite having lower pixel count, but this is something that we can confirm in a comparison video, so do let us know if you want to see that. It doesn't do too well with foliage and exhibits watercolor effects in such situations. Default photos are captured in 12MP resolution that combines 4 pixels into one and gives the resulting pixel size of 1.6 micron compared to 0.8 micron pixel default size. But if you want to, you can shoot in full 48MP resolution as well without pixel binning, and doing so gives larger resolution and files that are roughly 3 times the size of the pixel bin images. You don't get much of a benefit from this as sharpness is more or less the same, if not worse, and often higher levels of noise, so using 12MP would make more sense. The primary camera seems to be the most laid back when it comes to processing, while the ultra-wide and telephoto camera seems to increase the saturation and contrast more. But in some situations it can be the other way around, and in some rare scenarios they also look almost identical too. In terms of low light performance, it's better to make use of the night mode if you want the best quality possible, and performance is decent but not great and not something that I would call flagship grade. Night mode reduces the noise, increases the clarity, which also gives apparent feeling of higher sharpness and better detailing. Portrait photos with people look good at a glance, however zooming in will reveal the issues with edge detection and also the fact that there is some softening applied to a skin even though the beauty mode is turned off. You can capture portraits with either the regular or telephoto camera, and the latter has slightly better edge detection, and edge detection and blurring is better if you try on objects using the bokeh mode, as these samples will demonstrate. The ultra-wide angle camera does a good job at offering a dramatic perspective and still impressive looking images, but it doesn't carry the same level of detail and sharpness as the primary camera, but is still decent. There are even some chromatic aberrations towards the corners of the frame, especially when there's a stark difference in luminance. Ultra-wide angle camera can focus pretty up close, but there's a dedicated super macro mode that you can enable, and doing so gives some great macro shots and is perhaps one of the best macro phones we've seen so far. You can get real close to the action. It seems like it's using the regular camera and ultra-wide angle camera together to get this result, because although blocking the ultra-wide angle camera shows that the viewfinder is blacked out in this particular mode, the perspective offered from the images seem closer to the 1x regular camera. Either way, well done here to the iQOO team. Telephoto camera is good in terms of offering a better reach, especially in those situations where you can't move closer to the subject or object, but in terms of the optical quality itself, it does feel much inferior compared to the primary camera, especially due to a lower detail and sharpness. There's also some color noise that's easily visible even in situations where there's good light involved. The front-facing camera is 16MP f2.4 Samsung sensor that's housed in a display cutout. Selfies aren't too great in terms of detail and sharpness, and overall we would have expected better results from a phone in this segment, but it is what it is. The front portrait mode is not too great, and we found the blur to be over aggressive, and the edge detection is perhaps a bit too lenient, and that results in the blur leaking onto portions where you would have liked to have better focus and no blurring. You can shoot videos with all three cameras, that is primary, ultra-wide and telephoto. You can shoot up to 4K 60 or 1080p 60 with the primary and telephoto cameras, while the ultra-wide only supports 1080p 30. EIS is only found in 1080p modes for the primary and telephoto cameras, while there is no EIS at all, while 4K 30 and 60 don't get EIS. I'm surprised that the 4K 60fps mode does exist, considering that the IMX582 is supposed to have an upper limit of 4K 30 only, and I'm not really sure why there isn't an option for EIS at least at 4K 30, as the phone's hardware is definitely powerful enough to handle it with ease. As a result, I would generally offer 1080p modes to get a more refined look thanks to EIS, and to be honest, the EIS is amazing as one of the most stable implementations we have seen and does a great job even when taking a brisk walk. If you're jogging or running, you can even make use of the ultra steady mode, but doing so reduces the video quality by a fair bit. It has more clarity as well as more noise and weirder looking colors, and finally this is a way to force the camera to capture 60fps 1080p videos with EIS, as the regular 1080p 60fps videos don't support EIS. The video shot with the ultra wide angle camera have some sort of jitter, especially apparent in the top half of the frame. Not sure what is causing this, but there could be something that could be fixed with a software update. The front-facing camera video is not all that great as the bitrate is low and seems like the sharpness isn't all that great either, and the audio seems low as well. Hey guys, this is Sandeep from RevAtlas, and this is the front-facing camera on the iQOO 3 capturing 1080p 30fps video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, dynamic range, how well it's picking my voice in this scenario, and the stabilization as well. Slow motion videos can be recorded at 240fps in 720p or 120fps at 1080p, and quality is surprisingly good in this case, but it does have a tendency to focus hunt, especially if you move quite a bit. On the whole, it seems like the iQOO 3 camera setup is quite impressive and is definitely better than what we saw with the Realme X50 Pro 5G in terms of detail, portraits, video. Despite the seemingly lower end hardware in the phone, it still does perform better thanks to better image processing and software optimization, and it would be interesting to see how it actually fares in a detailed comparison as well. That's it for this video guys. If you have any questions, do let us know in the comment section below. See you again in the next one, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.